The jungle hunt ended in screams, except for the human who climbed and lurked like a leopard. The transport ship descended through thick clouds of green and gray. Below, the jungle planet of Vareth 7 waited like a hungry mouth. Yuna pressed her face against the small window and studied the endless sea of trees. They stretched in every direction, dark and ancient, hiding whatever lived beneath their canopy. "Looks peaceful from up here," Taesung said from the seat beside her. He was checking his boots for the third time, making sure the laces were tight. Yuna shook her head slowly. "Nothing peaceful about it. Look at how the trees move. Something big is walking down there." Taesung leaned over to look. He saw nothing but green, but he had learned long ago to trust Yuna's eyes. She saw things others missed. It was why she had survived 10 years as a wilderness instructor on Earth's most dangerous continents. It was why the Galactic Council had chosen her for this trial. The transport held 20 beings from 20 different species. Each one represented their people in this test. The Vareth trial, they called it. 3 days in the jungle. Reach the extraction beacon on the far side. Survive. That was all. Humanity needed to pass this trial to earn full voting rights in the Galactic Council. Yuna looked around at the other representatives. Most of them came from worlds with controlled climates, clean air, safe cities. They had never known true wilderness. She could see it in how they sat, how they breathed, how they jumped at every small sound the ship made. A tall insectoid alien stood at the front of the transport. His name was Council of Wrath, and his compound eyes showed no warmth. He was the one who had designed this trial. He was the one who believed humans would fail. "Listen carefully," Wrath said, his voice clicking and sharp. "The jungle contains many predators. The most dangerous are the thornbacks. 6 legs, armored skin, venomous spines along their backs. They hunt by sound and by the vibrations of the ground. If you run, they will hear you. If you hide on the ground, they will feel you." A soft-bodied amphibian near Yuna made a worried sound. His name was Delegate Morel, and his skin changed colors with his emotions. Right now, it was pale with fear. "How do we fight them?" asked a large stone-skinned alien named Elder Korath. He was twice Yuna's height and believed his strength made him safe. Roth's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "You do not fight them. You survive them. Or you do not." The transport touched down in a small clearing. The ramp lowered, and the heavy, wet air of the jungle flowed inside. It smelled of rot and flowers and something else. Something alive and watching. Yuna was the first to step out. Her boots sank slightly into the soft ground. She stood very still and listened. The jungle was loud with sounds, insects, birds, the rustle of leaves. But beneath all that noise, there was a pattern, a rhythm, and somewhere in that rhythm she heard movement. Heavy movement? Patient movement? Taesung stepped beside her. "How bad?" "They're already watching us," Yuna said quietly. "The Thornbacks. They know we're here." The other representatives piled out of the transport, talking loudly, complaining about the heat, arguing about which direction to go. Wrath watched from the ramp with his cold compound eyes. "The beacon is 40 kilometers to the east," he announced. "You have 3 days. The extraction ship will not wait." Then the ramp closed and the transport lifted off, leaving them alone in the green darkness. Immediately, the arguing grew louder. A group of reptilian aliens wanted to move fast and cover ground quickly. A pair of floating gas beings thought they should wait until nightfall when it would be cooler. Elder Korath simply started walking, expecting others to follow. Yuna did not join the argument. Instead, she looked up. The trees were enormous. Their trunks were as wide as houses, and their branches stretched high into the sky, creating a second world above the jungle floor. Vines hung between them like bridges. Thick leaves blocked out most of the sunlight, casting everything below in shadow. "Taesung," she said softly. "Look up." He followed her gaze. Understanding slowly filled his face. The trees. The thornbacks hunt on the ground. They feel vibrations through their feet. They hear movement through the air. Yuna walked to the nearest tree and placed her hand against its bark. It was rough and covered with small holes, perfect for climbing. But up there, we would be invisible to them. "The others won't climb," Taesung said. "Most of them can't. Then most of them won't survive." It was a cold thing to say, but Yuna had seen death before. She had seen people die in the mountains because they refused to listen. She had seen them die in the desert because they thought they knew better. Nature did not care about pride or arguments. Nature only cared about what worked. She began to climb. Her hands found holds easily, and her feet pushed against the bark with practiced skill. She moved slowly, testing each branch before putting her weight on it. Taesung followed behind her, his larger body working harder but keeping pace. Below, the other representatives finally started moving. They walked in a loose group, still talking, still making noise. Delegate Morel looked up once and saw Yuna climbing. His skin flickered with confusion, but then Elder Karth called for him to keep up, and he hurried after the group. Yuna reached a thick branch about 20 meters above the ground. She sat with her back against the trunk and looked down. From here, she could see everything. The group moved through the undergrowth like a parade, breaking branches, stepping on dry leaves, announcing their presence to anything listening. And something was listening. She saw the first, thornback, before anyone on the ground did. It was huge, nearly 3 meters long, with 6 powerful legs and a back covered in sharp spines that glistened with venom. It moved through the shadows without sound, circling the group, staying just out of sight. Then she saw a second one. And a third. Taesung settled onto the branch beside her. He saw them too. Should we warn them? Yuna thought about it. If she called out, the thornbacks would hear. They would know where she was. And the group below probably wouldn't listen anyway. They would panic. They would run. And running was the worst thing they could do. "We wait," she said. "We watch. And when the time comes, we move." The sun began to set. The jungle grew darker. And below, the group made camp in a small clearing, building a fire that sent smoke rising through the trees like a signal. The first scream came an hour after dark. Then came more screams. And more. The jungle filled with the sounds of terror and death as the thornbacks attacked from every direction. But high above, wrapped in shadow and silence, Yuna and Taesung did not move. They watched. They waited. And they learned how the hunters hunted, so that when the time came, they would know exactly how to survive. The jungle hunt ended in screams, except for the human who climbed and lurked like a leopard. The second night brought new challenges. Yuna noticed it first. The thornbacks were gathering beneath their section of the canopy, not hunting, just waiting. Their massive bodies circled in the shadows, their heads tilting upward, their nostrils flaring as they tried to catch scents from above. "They know we're here," she said quietly. Taesung moved to her branch and looked down. He counted at least 7 of the predators below. Their armored hides caught the moonlight, and their venomous spines seemed to glow with deadly promise. "They're learning," he said. "They can't reach us, so they're waiting for us to come down." Jiho crept closer, keeping his voice low. "They're patient hunters. They could wait for days. Then we move," Yuna said. "We can't stay in one place anymore. They figured out our pattern. We need to break it." She woke the others with soft touches, not words. Each member of the group understood immediately. Hannah helped Delegate Morel into a harness made of vines. Ren, the reptilian, stretched his stiff muscles. Mach and Tal wrapped their flexible bodies around branches, ready to move at the signal. Scree was awake too, her bright eyes reflecting the moonlight. "Where do we go?" Una pointed east. The river. Hannah says the Thornbacks avoid deep water. There's a gap in their patrol near the bank. If we move now, quietly, we can get through. At night? Ren asked. His voice carried doubt. At night, Tae-soon confirmed. They expect us to move during the day when they rest. They're not expecting us to travel now. The group began to move. They did not speak. They used hand signals only, gestures that Una had taught them during the day. One finger up meant stop. 2 fingers meant move forward. A flat palm meant danger. A pointing finger showed direction. The canopy was different at night. The branches were harder to see, the vines harder to judge. Una led the way, moving slowly, testing each hold before putting her weight on it. Her hands found the bark in the darkness, reading it like a language only she understood. Behind her, the others followed. They were not as skilled, not as silent, but they were careful. They watched where Una placed her feet and copied her exactly. They used the ropes and hooks that Tae-soon had made, pulling themselves between trees when climbing was too difficult. Delegate Morel was the slowest. His soft body was not built for this kind of movement, but he did not complain. He gritted his teeth and pulled himself forward, centimeter by centimeter, refusing to be the one who slowed the group down. Below, the Thornbacks noticed the movement. Their heads turned, tracking the sounds above. But the sounds were too soft, too scattered. The predators could not focus on a single point. They circled in confusion, bumping into each other, growing frustrated. One of them tried to climb a tree. Its claws dug into the bark, and it pulled itself up a few meters before its weight became too much. It fell back to the ground with a crash that made the whole jungle shake. Yun kept moving. The Thornbacks could not climb. That was their weakness. As long as the group stayed high, they were safe. Hours passed. The jungle grew darker as clouds covered the moon. The only light came from strange glowing insects that drifted through the canopy like living stars. The group used their faint glow to navigate, moving from tree to tree in complete silence. Ren was struggling. His reptilian body was built for power, not agility. His claws kept slipping on the smooth bark, and his tail threw off his balance, but he refused to give up. Every time he stumbled, he caught himself. Every time he slipped, he pulled himself back up. Scree flew ahead to scout when she had energy, then rested on branches when she tired. Her wings were not meant for long distances, and the jungle air was thick and heavy. But she pushed herself because the humans pushed themselves, and she did not want to be weaker than them. Near midnight, they reached the river. It was wide and dark, its surface reflecting the few stars that broke through the clouds. The sound of moving water filled the air, drowning out the smaller sounds of the jungle. Hannah had been right. There were no Thornbacks near the water. Their trail stopped at the river's edge, and they would not cross it. The group had found their path forward. We follow the river east, Una said. Stay in the trees above the bank. The ground is softer near the water, easier to hear. We don't want to give the Thornbacks any advantage. They moved along the river until dawn began to break. The sky turned from black to gray to pale orange, and the jungle came alive with new sounds. Birds called to each other. Insects began their morning songs. And somewhere in the distance, the Thornbacks returned to their dens to rest. The group found a massive tree that had grown out over the river. Its branches hung above the water, creating a hidden shelter. They settled there, exhausted but alive. Vren collapsed against the trunk, his scales scraping on the bark. He looked at Una with new eyes. I did not think you would make it, he admitted. When the trial began, I looked at your species and saw weak bodies, soft skin, no claws, no armor. I thought you would be the first to die. Una pulled a water bottle from her pack and took a slow drink. Many have thought that. They were usually the ones who died. How? Ren asked. How did your people become like this? You move like predators. You think like hunters. But your bodies look like prey. Taesung answered from nearby. Because we were prey once. Millions of years ago. We had to run from everything. We had to hide from everything. We were not the biggest or the fastest or the strongest. But we survived because we could think. We could plan. We could work together. Hannah added, and we could climb. Our ancestors lived in trees long before they walked on the ground. When danger came, they went up. They watched. They waited. They learned. She pointed at Yuna. She's doing exactly what our ancestors did 1,000,000 years ago. The jungle has not changed. And neither have we. Vrem was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I think I've been wrong about humans. I think many in the galaxy have been wrong. Yuna looked toward the east. The ridge was visible now, rising above the jungle canopy. The extraction beacon was there, waiting. One more day. One more push. We're not done yet, she said. Save your opinions for after we're off this planet. As the group rested, Scree moved closer to Yuna. Her feathers were ruffled with curiosity. May I ask something? Yuna nodded. The way you move, the way you think. You never panic. You never rush. Even when death is all around you, you stay calm. Scree tilted her head. Are all humans like this? Yuna considered the question. No. Many of us panic. Many of us make mistakes. But we learn from those mistakes. We watch others survive, and we copy what works. That's what makes us dangerous. We don't need to be born knowing how to survive. We can learn it. We can teach it. And once we know something, we never forget. Scree's feathers settled. She looked at the sleeping humans, at their soft bodies and strange hands and patient eyes. I think I understand now, she said quietly. You are not predators or prey. You are something else. Something the galaxy has never seen before. Yuna smiled but said nothing. She closed her eyes and let herself rest. Tomorrow would bring the final challenge. Tomorrow they would have to leave the trees and face the thornbacks on open ground. But for now, there was silence. There was peace. And there was the steady rhythm of a group that had learned to survive together. The jungle hunt ended in screams. Except for the human who climbed and lurked like a leopard, the screams lasted for hours. They echoed through the jungle like broken music, sharp at first, then weak, then silent. From her place in the high branches, Yuna counted them. She knew exactly how many voices went quiet and never returned. The fire below had been a mistake. She had known it would be. The smoke rose like a beacon, telling every predator in the jungle exactly where to find easy prey. The thornbacks had come from all directions, their massive bodies crashing through the undergrowth, their venomous spines gleaming in the firelight. Elder Korath had fought. Yuna had watched him grab a thornback by its armored head and throw it against a tree. The impact had killed the beast instantly, but the victory lasted only seconds. 2 more thornbacks leaped from the darkness, and one drove its spines deep into Korath's stone-like skin. The venom worked slowly on his kind, but it worked. He fell to his knees, still swinging, still fighting, until he moved no more. Taesung sat very still beside Yuna. His hands gripped the branch beneath him. She could see the tension in his jaw, the way his muscles wanted to move, to help, to do something. But he stayed still because she had taught him to stay still. We can't save them, Yuna whispered. Not like this. Not by going down there. I know, he said through his teeth. But knowing doesn't make it easier. Below, Delegate Morel had somehow survived. His soft body had wedged into a gap between 2 large roots too small for the thornbacks to reach. He shook with terror, his skin flashing through colors so fast it was almost painful to watch. But he was alive. Then Yuna heard something else. A sound that did not belong to the chaos below. A human voice, young and frightened. coming from somewhere to the north. "There's another one of us out here," she said. Taesung heard it too. Jiho, he was on a different transport. Must have landed nearby. Yuna moved. She shifted from branch to branch without sound, using the vines to swing across gaps, testing each hold before trusting her weight. Taesung followed, his larger frame making the work harder, but his years of rescue training keeping him steady. They found Jiho hiding inside a hollow log. He was young, maybe 24, with the look of someone who had never expected to face real danger. He worked in communications back on Earth, sitting at desks, talking into screens. The jungle was not his world, but he was smart enough to be afraid, and smart enough to hide instead of run. Yuna hung upside down from a low branch and looked into the hollow log. Jiho almost screamed when he saw her face in the darkness, but she pressed a finger to her lips, and he choked the sound back into his throat. She did not speak. Words made sound, and sound brought death. Instead, she pointed upward, toward the branches above. Then she reached down with her hand. Jiho stared at her. His eyes were wide and wet with tears. But he understood. He took her hand, and she pulled him out of the log with surprising strength. Then she pointed at the tree and showed him where to put his hands and feet. He climbed. Badly at first. His arms shook, and his legs kicked too much. But Yuna climbed beside him, guiding him with small touches, showing him the rhythm. By the time they reached the high branches where Taesung waited, Jiho was breathing hard, but alive. "Thank you," he gasped. Yun shook her head. "Don't thank me yet. The night is long." They moved through the canopy as the hours passed. Below, the Thornbacks finished their hunt and began to drag their kills into the deeper jungle. Yuna watched their patterns. She counted how many there were, noted where they went, memorized the sounds they made when communicating with each other. When dawn finally came, the jungle grew quiet. The Thornbacks had eaten their fill and returned to whatever dens they called home. Sunlight filtered through the canopy in golden beams, and for a moment, the world seemed almost peaceful. Yuna climbed down carefully to check the clearing where the group had made their camp. What she found was worse than she had expected. Bodies lay scattered like broken dolls, some whole, some not. The fire had burned down to ash. Equipment was destroyed, scattered, useless. She found Delegate Morel still wedged between the roots. He was unconscious, but breathing. The terror had been too much for his mind, and it had simply shut down to protect itself. She pulled him free and carried him over her shoulder back to the tree. Taesung helped her lift him into the branches. They tied him to a thick limb with vines, so he would not fall. When he finally woke hours later, his skin had gone a steady gray, the color of deep shock. "They're all dead," he whispered. "All of them." "I watched them die." "Not all," Yuna said. "We're still here." Morel looked at her with eyes that could not understand. How did you survive?" She pointed at the branches around them. "We climbed. We watched. We waited. But the Thornbacks hunt on the ground," Taesung said. "They feel vibrations through their feet. They hear movement through the air. But they don't look up. They never look up." Morel's skin flickered with new colors. Confusion, hope, disbelief. "Your people, you evolved to climb?" Yuna almost smiled. "Millions of years ago, we lived in trees. We came down when we were ready, but we never forgot how to go back up." Jiho sat nearby, eating a protein bar from his pack. His hands had stopped shaking. "So what now?" "The beacon is still 40 kilometers away, and there are more Thornbacks between us and it. We stay in the trees," Yuna said. "We move during the day when the Thornbacks rest. We travel through the canopy when we can, drop to the ground only when we must. And we never ever make a sound." Morel's skin shifted to pale blue, uncertainty. I cannot climb like you. My body is not built for it. Then we'll help you, Taesung said. We'll tie ropes. We'll carry you if we have to. But you're not dying in this jungle. Not if you listen to us. Yuna climbed to a higher branch and looked out over the jungle. From here, she could see the land rising in the distance toward a ridge. That was where the beacon waited. 40 kilometers of dark jungle filled with predators. But as she looked, she saw something else. Movement in the trees nearby. Not thornbacks. Something smaller. Something flying. A bird-like alien with bright feathers crashed into the branches just meters away. She was exhausted, her wings barely holding her in the air, her breath coming in desperate gasps. Scree, Yuna remembered. One of the flying species representatives. Scree collapsed against a branch and looked at Yuna with eyes full of terror. Please, she gasped. Please help me. I can't fly anymore. I can't keep going. Yuna reached out and pulled her to safety. You're with us now. Rest. Breathe. You're safe here. Scree's feathers trembled. Safe? Nothing is safe on this world. Everything dies here. Not everything, Yuna said. She looked down at the jungle floor far below, where shadows moved and predators waited. Some things survive. Some things learn. And some things were born to be hunted and instead became hunters. Scree did not understand. But she would. In the days to come, she would watch the humans move through the jungle like ghosts. She would see them hunt the hunters, turn the rules of the jungle upside down, and walk out of hell without a single scratch. And she would finally understand why the galaxy should pay attention when humans climbed into the trees. The jungle hunt ended in screams, except for the human who climbed and lurked like a leopard by the second day. Yuna had built something new in the trees. It was not a camp or a shelter. It was a network. Vine bridges stretched between the largest branches, creating paths through the canopy. Rest platforms sat at safe points where the group could sleep without falling. Climbing ropes hung at key locations for those who could not move as easily as the humans. Taesung had worked through the night to create the ropes. He used vines and strips of bark woven together, testing each one with his own weight before allowing anyone else to use it. His hands were raw and bleeding, but he did not complain. There was no time for complaints. Jiho had found his purpose, too. He could not climb as well as the others, but he was good with tools. He fashioned hooks from broken branches that helped Delegate Morel pull himself between trees. He made signaling devices from hollow reeds that could produce soft sounds, low enough to blend with the jungle, but distinct enough to send messages. The group now had 7 members. The 3 humans, Delegate Morel, and Scree, the bird-like alien, had been joined by 2 more survivors. A female human named Hana had found them by following the rope network. She was a xenobiologist who had been studying the jungle's ecosystem when the attacks began. Her knowledge of animal behavior proved invaluable. The thornbacks are ambush predators, Hana explained as they gathered on a wide platform. They don't chase prey over long distances. They wait. They listen. They strike fast and hard. On the ground, most species never see them coming. But we're not on the ground, Jiho said. Exactly. Hana smiled for the first time since arriving. We've removed ourselves from their hunting method. They can smell us, maybe? They know something is up here. But they can't reach us, and they don't understand what we're doing. Scree ruffled her feathers nervously. But we must reach the ground eventually. The beacon is not in the trees. We'll deal with that when we get there, Yuna said. For now, we stay high. We move east. And we stay silent. Councilor Vroth watched all of this from his ship in orbit. His compound eyes flickered between multiple screens showing different angles of the jungle. Most of the cameras had been destroyed in the attacks, but a few still worked. He had expected to watch humanity fail. He had expected to see them die like the others, running and screaming and falling to the thornback's spines. Instead, he watched them climb. He watched a female called Una move through the branches like she belonged there. She never rushed. She never made unnecessary movements. She tested each hold, each branch, each vine before trusting it. Her patience was extraordinary. Other species would have panicked. They would have made mistakes. But she moved with a calm that disturbed him. "Show me their evolutionary records," he ordered his aide. The information appeared on his screen. Roth read about the creatures called primates. He learned about millions of years of living in trees, developing hands that could grip, eyes that could judge distance, bodies that could climb and swing and balance. He learned about the predators that had hunted them, the cats and eagles and snakes that had shaped their survival instincts. And he learned about the leopard, a killer that hunted in trees, a predator that waited in branches, silent and patient, watching its prey below until the perfect moment came. The humans had not forgotten. The knowledge was still in their bones. Down in the jungle, Una spotted movement on the ground. 4 aliens were struggling through the undergrowth, making enough noise to attract every thornback in the area. She recognized them as species representatives who had somehow survived the first night. "More survivors," Taesung said. He was beside her on the branch, watching the same scene. "They won't last long like that," Jiho added. Una made a decision. She began climbing down, moving from branch to branch with practiced ease. Taesung reached for her arm. "What are you doing?" "What we should have done last night," she said, showing them the way. She dropped to a lower branch, then another, until she was only a few meters above the jungle floor. The 4 aliens were close now. She could see their fear, their exhaustion, the way they jumped at every sound. She did not call out. She did not wave. She simply let herself be seen. The first to notice was a tall reptilian with green scales. He stopped walking and stared up at the human sitting in the tree like she owned it. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Una pointed upward. Then she began to climb back up, slowly, making sure they could see exactly how she did it. 2 of the aliens understood immediately. They were a pair of smaller beings with flexible bodies, almost like octopuses. They could climb. Maybe not as well as humans, but they could climb. They rushed to the tree and began pulling themselves up. The reptilian understood too. He was larger and heavier, but he was determined. He found holes in the bark and pushed himself upward, his claws digging into the wood. The 4th alien, a thin creature with too many legs, shook its head. "This is foolish," it said in a harsh voice. "We need to move fast, cover ground. Hiding in trees is for cowards." Una did not argue. She simply climbed higher and disappeared into the canopy. The thin alien turned and walked into the jungle alone. An hour later, they heard its screams. The 3 who had climbed were brought into the group. The reptilian's name was Vren. He was proud, but smart enough to learn. The 2 flexible beings were called Mach and Tal. They were quiet and watched everything the humans did with intense curiosity. Hannah taught them how the thornbacks behaved. She showed them the patterns she had observed, the times when the predators were most active, the sounds that attracted them and the sounds they ignored. "They hunt by vibration and sound," she explained. "Every footstep on the ground sends a signal. Every voice, every movement. Up here, the branches absorb our weight differently. We're harder to detect." Vren's eyes narrowed. "Your species has done this before. This is not new to you." "Not this exactly," Una said. "But we come from a world that taught us similar lessons. Everything on Earth wanted to kill us once. We survived because we learned. We adapted. We became something that predators learned to fear." Scree was listening from nearby. She had rested enough to perch on her own now, though she still tired quickly. Fear? Predators feared you? Not at first, Taesung said. At first, we were prey. We were small and weak and slow. But we learned to work together. We learned to use tools. We learned to think ahead. He paused, looking down at the shadows below. And we learned that sometimes the best way to survive is to climb up, sit still, and wait for the danger to pass. As night fell on the second day, the group settled into their rest platforms. Yuna took the first watch, sitting on a high branch where she could see in all directions. The jungle below was alive with movement. Thornbacks emerged from their dens and began their patrol, searching for anything that walked on the ground, but there was nothing for them. The survivors had learned. They stayed in the trees, silent and still, watching the predators hunt for prey that no longer existed. And high above, Council of Wrath watched too. He saw the humans teaching the others. He saw them building a community in the canopy. He saw them turning a death trap into a home. For the first time since the trial began, he felt something he had not expected to feel. He felt uneasy, because the humans were not just surviving. They were thriving, and that changed everything he thought he knew about them. The jungle hunt ended in screams, except for the human who climbed and lurked like a leopard. Third day arrived with heavy clouds and the smell of rain. Yuna woke before the others and climbed to the highest branch she could reach. From there, she could see the extraction beacon clearly. It sat on top of a rocky ridge, maybe 3 kilometers away. A small clearing surrounded it, open ground with no trees. No cover dot. Between the jungle and the ridge was a field of tall grass. It was beautiful in a dangerous way, golden and swaying in the morning breeze. But Yuna knew what waited in that grass. She could see the shapes moving through it, the patterns that spoke of predators circling their territory. The thornbacks were waiting. They had learned. She climbed down and gathered the group. 8 survivors. 4 humans. 4 aliens. They had come so far, but the final stretch was the most dangerous. The beacon is there, Yuna said, pointing toward the ridge. But there's open ground between us and it. No trees, no cover. The thornbacks will see us the moment we step into that field. Varen's scales rippled with tension. Then how do we cross? We don't, Yuna said. Not all of us. Not at the same time. She explained her plan. It was simple but dangerous. The humans would go down to the ground first. They would make noise, draw attention, lead the thornbacks away from the direct path to the beacon. While the predators were chasing them, the aliens would cross the open field and reach the extraction point. You will die, Delegate Morel said. His skin was pale gray with fear. Maybe, Taesung admitted. Maybe not. We've been watching the thornbacks for 3 days. We know how they move. We know how they think. They're ambush predators. They wait for prey to come to them. But if the prey moves in strange ways, if it doesn't act like prey, they get confused. Hannah nodded. We won't run in straight lines. We'll zigzag. We'll climb. We'll drop. We'll disappear into the jungle and reappear somewhere else. They'll chase us, but they won't catch us. Scree spread her wings in protest. You cannot sacrifice yourselves for us. We are strangers. We are not your people. Yuna looked at her with steady eyes. You are our people now. We survived this jungle together. We learned together. That makes you ours to protect. Jiho checked his climbing hooks and rope. His hands were steady, his face calm. He had changed in the past 3 days. The fear was still there, but it was buried under something stronger. Purpose, confidence, trust. We've got this, he said. We're humans. This is what we do. The group made their way to the edge of the jungle. The tree line stopped abruptly, giving way to the grass field that stretched toward the ridge. The beacon was visible now, a tall metal spire with a blinking light at its top. Why, Yuan spotted at least 10 thornbacks in the grass. They were spread out, covering different angles of approach. Any direct path to the beacon would pass within striking distance of several of them. "Wait for our signal," Yuna told the aliens. "When you see the thornbacks chasing us, run. Don't stop. Don't look back. Just run." Ren grabbed her arm. His grip was strong, his eyes intense. "I will remember this. My people will remember this. What you are doing here, it will not be forgotten." Yuna smiled. "Then make sure you survive to tell them." She looked at Taesung and Jiho. Hannah was beside them, her jaw set with determination. 3 days ago, they had been strangers thrown into a death trap. Now they were a team, a pack, a family. "Let's go hunting," Yuna said. They dropped from the trees and hit the ground running. But they did not run toward the beacon. They ran parallel to the jungle edge, making noise, breaking branches, shouting at the top of their lungs. The effect was immediate. The thornbacks turned, their massive heads tracking the sound. Then they charged. Yuna split from the group, veering left into the tall grass. A thornback followed her, its 6 legs pounding the ground. She could feel the vibrations through her feet, could hear its heavy breathing behind her. She did not run in a straight line. She zigzagged, cutting left, then right, then left again. The thornback was faster, but she was more agile. It overshot her turns, stumbling as it tried to change direction. Then she saw a tree, one of the few that grew at the edge of the grass field. She ran straight for it and leaped. Her hands caught the lowest branch, and she pulled herself up in a single motion, her legs swinging free just as the thornback's jaws snapped shut where they had been. From the branch, she saw Taesung doing the same thing nearby. He had led 2 thornbacks into the jungle, then climbed a tree and vanished into the canopy. The predators circled below, confused and angry. Jiho was running in a long curve, pulling 3 thornbacks away from the beacon's approach. He was slower than Yuna but smarter about his path. He led the predators toward a rocky area where the ground was uneven, and their 6 legs stumbled on the stones. Hana had the most dangerous job. She was the closest to the beacon, deliberately drawing the attention of the thornbacks that guarded the direct approach. She ran in short bursts, stopping and starting, making herself look like injured prey. The thornbacks came for her, expecting an easy kill. But Hana was not easy. She led them into a narrow gully where their bulk worked against them. They crashed into each other, tangled in their own legs, and by the time they sorted themselves out, she had climbed up the opposite side and was running again. The aliens saw their chance. Ren led the charge, his powerful legs carrying him across the grass at impressive speed. Mach and Tal flowed behind him like water, their flexible bodies barely touching the ground. Delegate Morel ran as fast as his soft body could manage, his skin flashing with colors of fear and hope. Scree flew above them, her wings beating hard against the thick air. She was exhausted, but she would not stop. Not now. Not when they were so close. The thornbacks saw the movement and turned, but it was too late. The humans had drawn too many of them away. The few that remained were out of position, too far to intercept. Vren reached the beacon first. He slammed his hand against the activation panel, and the extraction signal flared to life. Behind him, the others arrived one by one, collapsing on the rocky ground, gasping for breath. The extraction ship appeared in the sky within minutes. It descended toward the beacon, its engines roaring, its lights blazing, and from the jungle edge, the 4 humans emerged. They walked calmly out of the grass, climbing down from trees, appearing from shadows. They were breathing hard, their clothes torn, their faces streaked with sweat and dirt. But they were alive. Every single one of them, Counselor Vroth was on the extraction ship. He stood at the ramp as the survivors boarded, his compound eyes studying the humans with an expression no one could read. "You should not have survived," he said to Una. "No species has ever passed the Verith trial with so many survivors." Una met his gaze without flinching. "Then maybe you didn't understand what you were testing." Vroth was silent for a long moment. Then he asked, "How? How did you do what you did? How did you survive when so many others died?" Una thought about the question. She thought about the trees, the branches, the long hours of silence. She thought about her ancestors, millions of years ago, watching the world from above while predators walked below. "We learned to climb," she said. "We learned to wait. We learned that the jungle does not belong to the loudest. It belongs to the patient." Vroth nodded slowly. "And the predators? You moved among them like you were one of them." "Because we were," Una said. "Once upon a time, we were prey. But we refused to stay that way. We watched. We learned. We became something else. Something that predators learned to fear." The ship lifted off, carrying them away from the jungle planet. Stori sat beside Una, her feathers finally smooth and calm. "There is something I want to ask," Stori said. "When we were in the trees, when you moved through the branches like a shadow, you reminded me of something. A hunter, patient and silent, waiting above while prey walked below." Una nodded. "We have a word for that on Earth, an old teacher that hunted the same way. It was called a leopard." Stori tilted her head. "What is a leopard?" Una smiled. "A lesson. One that humanity learned a long time ago. One we never forgot." She looked out the window as the jungle planet shrank below them. The trial was over. Humanity had passed. But more than that, they had shown the galaxy something important. Humans were not just survivors. They were something the galaxy had never seen before. They were the leopard in the trees, silent, patient, waiting, and now the galaxy knew to look up.